Well, hello, hello, hello. Nice to see you. Nice to have you join me on Wellness by Design today. I'm Jane Hogan, the wellness engineer, and I am passionate about blending science and spirituality to help people let go of joint pain by releasing inflammatory foods, thoughts, and feelings so that they can become empowered creators of their own health. And Wellness by Design is exactly what it says. It's about helping people intentionally design a life of wellness instead of just reacting to what's going on around them. And I'm really, really excited today to welcome Palmer Kippola. Palmer is a functional medicine certified health coach like me. She's had an autoimmune journey like me, only hers has started a bit long before mine did. And so I'm just really excited to have her. She's also the author of Beat Autoimmune, the 6 Keys to Reverse Your Condition and Reclaim Your Health. Really excellent read. I highly recommend it. So Palmer, welcome to the show.
Jane, thank you so much. It's just an honor to be with you. And as you're describing my background and I'm realizing how much we resonate, it's just, I'm so thrilled by what you're doing in this world.
Well, and my admiration goes out to you too as well. I just love what you're doing. So that's why we're kindred spirits, right?
Absolutely.
So tell me and the audience a little bit about your background and what got you to functional medicine and being a health coach.
Well, it's a long story, but I'm going to keep it brief if I can, because I have to take you back to when I was 19 years old. So we need to travel back in time a little bit. So I was a happy, healthy, well-adjusted young woman. I was in college, had gone to my freshman year in Vermont, was home for the summer and working just a summer job. And one morning I woke up and the soles of my feet were all tingly, like that feeling you have when you've slept on a limb and then the blood flows back and you get that pins and needles sensation. Only this particular morning, the blood didn't flow back. So off I went to work thinking this will just go away. Yeah. But over the course of the morning, it just crept up my leg like a vine. It didn't go away. So I called my parents, who called the family doctor, who said, get her to the neurologist today. So that's what we did. And by the time we reached the neurologist's office, that creepy tingling had gone all the way under my collarbone.
Oh, scary.
Really, really scary. Had no idea what was going on. And the neurologist had me do this heel toe, the typical assessment in her office, touch the fingers to the nose. And literally, Jane, within 5 minutes, she said, I am 99% certain that you have multiple sclerosis, MS.
19.
And if I'm right, she said, there's nothing you can do except take medication, but go home and wait and we'll see. So that was that. Seriously, we had never heard of MS. Now, keep in mind, this is in the 80s. There is no internet.
Right.
Nobody's talking about autoimmune illness. It's just not on the map. It's not on the radar. But here I am. So I would literally spend the next 6 weeks of my life on the couch, lying there and not knowing what the future held. Was I going to have to go to school in a wheelchair? Could I go back to college? It was really a terrifying time. We had no idea. So all of the areas that had gone tingling had gone completely numb for those 6 weeks. So literally enshrouded in numbness for a full 6 weeks. That was my initial experience of the MS. And I'll say that my parents were absolute rocks. It was just fantastic to have them be so supportive. My mom would empathize and plan my uncertain future. And my dad would tell me, honey, you're going to beat this thing. You can beat this thing.
Yeah.
He was very motivational. I didn't know how I was going to, but he kept motivating me. And during this time also, friends would come by and bring gifts that 19-year-old friends bring over, cookies and movies and things like that and books. But this one family friend came over to visit and she had a gift that didn't seem at all like a gift at the time, Jane, because she asked me, Palmer, why do you think you got the MS? Like, what do you mean? Why do you think I got the MS? Like, are you kidding me? Did I do this to myself? Are you accusing me of bringing this on myself? But I didn't have anywhere to go. Remember, I'm lying on the couch. I'm 19 years old. And I just have to take you back in time a little bit more because I couldn't let go of the question. I was chewing on it like a dog with a bone, seriously. And so one day I'm lying there and it hit me like a flash of insight that because I had been adopted as a baby by very loving parents, but my dad, my motivational dad, was also a former fighter pilot whose way was invariably the right way. And we butted heads quite a bit. And my earliest memory, Jane, is of my dad yelling at my mom, who has shut herself behind her bedroom door and she's crying and he's calling her names. And there I am, age 3 or 4, and I get this flash. Remember, I'm 19 on the couch and I get this flash of insight. Oh my God, I had become a child warrior. I had stood up to my dad with my little dukes up. You call my mom names and I'll sock your lights out.
Wow.
Seriously.
And is that a pattern you've seen? Because I imagine you've worked with MS, other people with MS since then. Is that kind of a pattern you see?
Oh my goodness. Well, for sure, chronic stress is a setup for autoimmune conditions, but these adverse childhood experiences, we know, are the setup for autoimmune even decades later. So it really was no surprise that my setup was a combination of chronic stress and other things, but it would take me a full 26 years of doing those experiments that my dad was encouraging me to do. So on the one hand, he's part of the story in the setup, but he's also part of the story in the resolution.
Right. That's beautiful. That's beautiful, because if he wasn't part of the solution, he would probably feel very guilty.
Right.
But yeah, we don't realize those adverse childhood events. And there's a test people can do, and you know about this, I'm sure, the ACE score. They don't even have to be that traumatic. Like, it's not, severe abuse and that kind of thing. It can be very mild. And in my case, it was a mild, but it was a continual, and it's something that I hung on to my whole life, as up to that point as well, or up to recently. So they really can have an effect. And I see this over and over again with people that I work with autoimmune conditions as well.
All the time, for sure. But there's also so much hope, because having a recognition and awareness that this is part of your setup, as we talk about in functional medicine, the timeline of being able to really understand, what is your story? What was the setup? Because it becomes super empowering to know, yes, this happened, but now I'm, as you talk about often, by design, now I'm responsible. I may not have known that I was, causing this to happen, but now that I know, it's up to me to do what I can to turn that ship around.
Yeah. And it's not to blame anyone or anything. It's just, this was my life. This is what happened. And now here I am learning from it. And do I want to learn from it? I hope that we want to learn from it. And the other thing that I think is really beautiful about your story and your journey is that message of empowerment, which is a beautiful thing. And that's exactly what you talk about in your book with your, you talk about the framework for healing called FIGHTS. Which is an acronym. So would you like to explain that a little bit?
I sure would. So first of all, I have to share that the title of the book, Beat Autoimmune, was directly a result of my dad's telling me all the time, honey, you can beat this thing. So there was a reason for that. Yeah. So when I sat down, you noticed that. So when I finally sat down to write the book, I thought, I'm a word person and I really want people to understand all the things they can do to control an autoimmune condition, right? To reverse or prevent one. Once I knew it was possible and why, and that we have this empowering science of epigenetics and that there's actually an autoimmune equation, I had all these words on a piece of paper and I tried to figure out what word would emerge, and I was hoping for peace, but what emerged was FIGHTS. And it stands for food, infections, gut health, hormone balance, toxins, and stress. It's all of the categories for the root cause triggers that we can control.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. I know. And it's all those things that come together. And it's not like one thing that's going to heal someone, but when you put all of these things together, examine them, some may be more important for some people than others. So yeah, I love that you've pulled it all together like that in a way that people can remember. And by the way, if you're watching live, if you have any questions, just type the questions in the comments and we'll get them up there and we'll try to answer you. Okay, so that's beautiful. Do you want to go into those a little bit in any more detail, or is there one or two you'd like to pull out?
So I'll touch on a couple of them. I know we don't have time to go into detail on all of them, but I would say the highest leverage category is food. And it's what I advise starting with, and it's the first chapter in the book, is start with food, because, and as I interviewed dozens of practitioners who had also beat autoimmune conditions and did all this research and coached clients, I found time and time again, and I heard time and time again, that people heal 60 to 100% of the way just by changing what they eat. Yeah. So let's just touch on the top three things that I see over and over again. Number one, by far and away, is gluten.
Yeah.
Right. We know this. You've talked about this. It is, it's really not a surprise. It's a modern day super glue that's found in all grains, but in particular wheat. And the 2015 study by Alessio Fasano from Harvard Medical School shows that anyone who eats gluten develops a leaky gut. And we know that leaky gut is the pathway to autoimmune conditions. So if you have an autoimmune condition, or it runs in your family, or you're wanting to prevent one, number one food to eliminate, and I don't just recommend gluten, I recommend all grains. All grains contain some form of gluten. There might be shades of gray in terms of which is worse, but that is the biggest baddie of all when it comes to autoimmunity.
Yeah. And not only autoimmunity, I mean, you and I are talking about autoimmunity, but really inflammation is the root, is the underlying condition in pretty much all chronic diseases. And most inflammation does begin in the gut. So food is a great place to start. And we know that gluten is just like tears holes.
That's right. That's right. So absolutely. Beautifully said. Number one. And not too far behind gluten, 70% of people who are sensitive to gluten, like me, are also sensitive to dairy, animal dairy. So you know this too, right? Yeah. And so with the exception of grass-fed organic ghee, really dairy needs to go if you are dealing with these symptoms. And the third one is sugar. And sugar doesn't get a lot of press when it comes to autoimmune conditions. But here's the deal. Autoimmunity is not a body part problem. It's a system-wide problem.
It is.
And whatever part of you is affected, whatever autoimmune condition you have, comes down to your genetic weak link. But it's an immune system problem.
It is.
In whole. Yeah. And sugar, you may know this, because the research has been there since the 1970s, blocks your immune system from functioning for up to 5 hours after eating it. So it's not worth it. And I'm not just talking about white table sugar, right? There's all kinds of sugar.
Yeah. And even natural sugars, like some people think, oh, well, fruit's fine. I can eat fruit till the cows come home. And even that still is sugar when it's in your bloodstream.
That's right. And starchy carbohydrates.
And starchy carbohydrates too. Absolutely. Sweet potatoes, ooh, love them, but they can do a number two. Yeah. And even other surprising things like, I know balsamic vinegar. People think, well, vinegar is fine. Balsamic vinegar is super sweet, and even that can do a number. Not that we're going to get into too many details now, but I love that you mentioned those three, because for me, when I was just like had no clue what I was doing, and I just heard gluten and dairy, I actually did cut out gluten, dairy, and sugar, because the only time I had sugar was in baked things, which I loved, cookies and cakes and all that stuff. I cut out 3 of them, cold turkey, and that I had about, to me, it seemed like about a 50% reduction in pain in 5 days.
Wow. 5 days.
From those 3 things. Now, of course, there was a lot more that I learned on my journey. That alone, I think that just changed everything for me, because it gave me hope. Real power, and I just had to figure this out.
Yes. It's so empowering.
Food, that's great.
So that's by far the biggest one. And I want to touch on toxins. I want to jump to toxins for a minute, because You know, one of the reasons that autoimmunity is epidemic is that we have more toxins in our environment than we've ever faced before. And as you talk all the time, our environment is not just, you know, air pollution. When we think of toxins, we think of, you know, a smokestack with things spewing out in the air,
Yeah.
but it's so much more than just that, right? Dr. Joseph Pizzorno talks about how 70% of our toxic load comes from conventional food that we're eating that has pesticides and herbicides and the ubiquitous glyphosate and atrazine and the GMO foods that are actually grown to withstand the spraying of these toxins. Well, what happens when we ingest that food? It becomes part of who we are, right? Right?
Yeah.
And animals concentrate those pesticides and herbicides 5 to 20 times the vegetables. So the number one thing you can do from a toxin perspective is go organic or biodynamic with your food. At the very least, make sure that you're choosing meat that is organic, 100% grass-fed, right?
Yeah.
Or wild. And for goodness sake, do not eat farmed fish.
Yeah, I know. That's where I always say it's best to put your money, because people are always concerned about the cost.
Yes.
But the protein is where you really need to make sure that you're getting the very best quality. And so the grass-fed, wild, pastured, all so much better. And the other thing, like we eat what we ate, right?
That's right. That's right. Beautiful. I love that. It's not just, you've heard we are what we eat, but listen to what Jane just said. We are what we ate. And you know, those cows, their digestive systems are meant to eat grass.
Yeah.
They are ruminants. They are meant to eat grass. When they are fed or non-organic, genetically modified soy, they're allergic to corn, but that's what they're fed.
Yeah.
What
and
kind of
sick.
They get sick.
Biotic, they have growth hormones. Anyway.
And that's exactly what we end up ingesting. And not to mention the stress of those confined animal feeding operations.
Right. Yeah. And it's hard because to convince people that there is damage in those proteins, because it seems like a real food, right? You know, it's not obviously an industrial food. It seems like a real food because there's no ingredient label. It's like 100% pure, like we would have Canadian beef, you know, so it's not obviously an industrial food, but it's very much an industrial food. And I know I've read that most of our antibiotic exposure actually comes from the meats that we eat rather than actually taking an antibiotic, which was a total mind blower for me.
It's really, really insidious. It means that there is a world of things that we feel like we can't control. So we have to do what we can, right?
Yeah. We can. There's a lot that we can control in that.
That's right.
Yeah. And it makes sense to do that, to do what we can. So that was two things you talked about. Yeah. So the food and the toxins, and the third thing you wanted to go into.
Let's touch on stress.
Yes.
It's really the biggest baddie in the room, you know, and it makes everything else worse. And I often talk about how you can't supplement your way out of a bad diet. Well, you can't exercise your way out of buried emotional trauma. So that early childhood stuff, that it doesn't have to be a big car accident or, you know, some huge event, you know, with a capital T trauma. It's those little things that you talked about that add up over time. But that really has to be looked at as
Oops, I can hear you.
Can you? Okay.
Yeah.
I think we cut out there.
Oh, okay. You seem fine to me. So,
okay. So I'm just saying we need to just really be honest with ourselves about how much stress we're letting in to our lives. And I often advise people just take stock, take inventory of all the things that are stressing them out. And decide what you're going to do about each thing. So it's really empowering to get out a sheet of paper and on the left side of the page, write down all of the things that are stressing you out, and then draw a line down the middle. And on the right side, decide what you're going to do with each one.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And I love that it's, you're talking about making decisions around it, being conscious about it. because a lot of times it's not even so much the stress, it's how we feel about the stress.
Yes.
So when you look at it, you can make a decision on how you're going to feel about it, or to, can you remove this from your life altogether? Another thing people don't really realize is that, and maybe I know that because I know we're kindred spirits, I know we're on the same page with this, but that people have these thoughts. They're thoughts that are going, they're subconscious thoughts that are going over and over and over again, and that creates stress in their body too.
That's right.
Negative self-talk, those
That's right.
things, and that can take a conscious decision, like awareness, right? Conscious decision, and then making designing, right? A new way of living. Palmer, I love all this stuff. I want to go back to my notes here. We're chatting so much that I need to unlock it again. Okay, so let's touch on this myth. The one that says, if you have autoimmune conditions, if your relatives have them, then you're destined to get one too.
Yeah.
We know that's not true.
This is such a big myth. And I think, conventional medicine and science still has not caught up. They say there's like a 17-year lag between science and, clinical practice. So for decades and maybe centuries, we believed that our DNA was our destiny. But now we've got this super empowering biology of epigenetics that shows that it's not our genes that just express themselves in some sort of pre-programmed kind of way. Like, I didn't just wake up at 19 and like an egg timer, the MS just went, surprise. No, it was my whole life, that toxin bucket that fills with all of those things. That is what gives direction to our DNA, whether or not to be expressed. So we have the power, Jane, as you talk about, to turn off the expression of autoimmunity. Yes. And I want to be really clear. I will always have the genes for MS. That's a blueprint. But I can mostly control whether or not those genes get expressed. Yeah. That's the super empowering part.
Yeah. And same for any autoimmune condition, and a lot of other chronic conditions as well. In fact, most of them are a lifestyle thing, and we can make changes in our lifestyle. So that's beautiful. All right. I've got links about where people can find you, your website and so on, but I know you got this gift, and I'm just going to pop that up on the screen. Whoop. There we go. Oh, no, that's not working. Let me try another way. Oh, there we go. It did go up. Okay, so on palmerkipala.com/gift. So if you go there, Palmer's got a gift you can download. So you want to tell us a little bit about it,
Sure.
Palmer?
So the biggest question I get is, what can I eat, or what should I eat to reverse an autoimmune condition? And I will submit that I think that you are in the best position to figure that out, but I give some guidelines in terms of how to figure that out, because it can be complicated. So it's called Your Optimal Food Guide. It's an ebook that gives you the path to figure out your optimal foods, and then how to try to reintroduce them and land on your optimal foods. That's what that is. And there's way more detail in my book, which is available right now. The Kindle version on Amazon is $2.99, Amazon US.
Yeah, I got it last week, and it's under $5, and it's a fantastic book. Like, I just highly recommend that you get it. It's really easy to read too, Palmer. Love your voice in the book, and it's not technical. It's just easy for people to understand. So I think that's great. So let's see. I'm going to show you. I always have this question that I ask my guests at the end. So this is, what's one action someone could take today to improve their health? What would you suggest, Palmer?
Oh, that's a great question. I feel like we've already touched on the food, which might be the highest leverage point, but I'm actually going to put in a mindset shift. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So here it is. And just have an open mind about this, because I'm not blaming anyone, because I was in your shoes, but I'm going to ask you to consider that instead of, why is this illness happening to me, to reframe it and consider, what if this illness is happening for me?
Because it is.
That's, and that could be the invitation to your best life, is to figure it out.
Yeah. Palmer, that is beautiful. And I remember, I read this summer too. I think it was Byron Katie was where I read it. What if this is happening for you instead of to you? And that reframe for me changed everything. Just kind of pondering that for a little bit. And I didn't see it right in the beginning.
Yeah.
But now the perspective that I have, I feel like for me, it woke me up.
Yeah.
This illness woke me up.
Wonderful.
And really made me become a designer of my life instead of just being an unconsciously living my life. And I know I've seen this for a lot of other people too. It's really given them a whole new perspective, a whole new passion, and another side effect that's really beautiful is that what's good for us is also good for the earth, good for humanity, and I think that's a beautiful evolution as well. So really thank you for that. That is lovely, lovely, lovely. So it is try the reframe. What if this is happening instead of to me, happening for me? That's beautiful, Palmer. Thank you so much. And thank you so much. I know we're kind of getting close on time now. Is there anything else we haven't said that you wanted to bring up?
I actually feel really complete, except I will just say the faster you can make that mental shift, I think the faster you actually can get out of the situation that you're in, because I think there is such a power of your mindset and intention. And if you start taking action in the direction of your dreams, you'll get there faster.
Yeah. Hold on to that dream, right? The dream of yourself healed and what you're going to do when you're healed, and picture it all the time. And that helps it become reality when you start picturing it, because your mind starts going, well, how can I make that happen?
Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful, Palmer. Thank you so much. And I know that the audience here on Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, wherever people are watching this, are going to be really, they received a great gift from you today. And you're inspiring people. So just keep on doing what you're doing. It's a beautiful thing.
Thank you, Jane. Such a pleasure and privilege to be with you.
All right. See you later, everyone. Thank you so much for watching.